Steam is one of the biggest platforms in the world when it comes to video games. Everyone knows this. They are owned by Valve, a company that is so profitable yet so small, its entire existence makes little to really no sense to the outside competitors that are orbiting it. Despite being a company that is roughly the size of like a single AAA studio, Valve continues to just rival the giants in the space when it comes to market dominance. You all know about the Steam Machine, or the Gabe Cube as some would call it, which I think is a better name because it's funnier. But the Steam Machine got announced, and its existence kinda puts the entire console gaming sphere for a loop, if I'm being honest. Full disclosure, I primarily play on PlayStation. I've been doing this since I was a child who knew nothing about the world. I primarily stuck to PlayStation as my main console, with usually a Nintendo handheld so I could play Pokemon and stuff like Fire Emblem: The Sacred Stones. I love that game, that's great. Anyways, I've never really been a PC gamer myself, mostly because I'll just be upfront here, I'm kind of a moron. I don't like having to deal with specs and figuring out why something isn't working or not. I'm sort of a caveman in that way, I fully admit. I just want to sit down, hit a button, pick up my controller, and then play my slop with as little resistance between me and the things that I want to play. I truly am, as they say, a console peasant. I fully admit this, okay? But even I, a peasant, have taken a gander at the GameCube and gone, could this be it? Could this finally be the thing that makes me migrate officially over to the Steam Machine over PlayStation and really everything else? And well, my answer as of now is simply maybe. You see, there's some tangible reasons why the Steam Machine is absolutely going to disrupt the future of console gaming. As Tom'sHardware.com reports here, Valve is targeting 4K gaming with 60 FPS with this Steam Machine. The general consensus I've seen is that Valve is seeking to create a console that is stronger than 70% of what most players use today to play video games. Why 70%, you may be asking? The answer is because the other 30% are those PC lords and queens of the worlds. The ones who can spend more billions of schmeckle dollars to make their PCs so powerful they may as well be able to travel through time when they play them. But Valve realized very early on that the majority of players are who you should be catering to, which is obviously a good idea if you're looking to drop an atom bomb on, say, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, of all things. So where does this Steam Machine fall in terms of power, you may be asking? As PC Gamer reported here, the Steam Machine is about 6 times more powerful than the Steam Deck is currently. Considering that a vast majority of Steam games, which is something like over 70,000 titles alone, are capable of being played on a Steam Deck right now, this means that the GameCube will be able to play pretty much anything you can play on Steam at a reasonable rate as well. No, it doesn't mean you can play The Witcher 3 at 500k with 2000 FPS with graphics so powerful you can see every speck of sweat on Geralt's glistening back, like I'm sure some PC users are used to. But again, like I said, the Steam Machine is meant for the majority of gamers, not the PC high lords and their castles who play their games with polar bear pelts under their feet because they're so rich. Also, if you want more non-BS content on gaming, consider subscribing to my godforsaken channel, thank you very much. But if you wanted an actual power scaling though, the Steam Machine is apparently not as powerful as a PS5, but more powerful than pretty much everything else console-wise. But why would I buy a Steam Machine then if it's not as powerful as a PS5? I hear you not asking, but me saying hypothetically in this video. Well, it's because according to Valve, it's not the size of the GPU, but how you use it. If you want actual specs, the Steam Machine can run at 4K with 120Hz with AMD FSR. That probably makes zero sense if you're a console gamer like me, so I'll keep it simple. This thing plays video games that you can play, okay? If you want to play Battlefield or Stardew Valley or your Gooner games, I play my Gooner games, I can't even lie, but anyway, don't worry, this thing can play all of those things, no problem, is what I'm saying. Here's the exact specs for the Steam Machine on screen for you to see. As you can see, it has 16 gigabytes of memory, options between 500 to 2 terabytes of storage. Of course, it runs on Steam OS because, well, it's Steam obviously, and according to Digital Foundry, who also got their hands on this thing early, they tried games like Cyberpunk 2077 to test how powerful this machine can run. To give you an idea, the Steam Machine could run Cyberpunk 2077 flawlessly at 60 FPS with 1440p resolution upscale. However, when they turned the ray tracing option on, the Steam Machine was then able to use ray tracing, of course, but it then needed to trade that power for a 30 FPS lock instead of having 60 FPS, but I really wouldn't hold this against the console, since even the PS5 sometimes has to trade power for ray tracing depending on the game too. But all of that being said, if all you care about about is playing the latest games at 60 FPS with it looking really nice, this thing is going to do the job just fine. But if you want your games to look better than real life, yeah, obviously this won't be it. But like Steam said, they're targeting the majority. So the majority of you watching this, it's either as good as you probably already have your gaming preferences even on PC or better right now, because like I said before, the Steam machine is still objectively stronger, according to Valve anyway, than about 70% of what Steam users are using already. So the next question to ask is why? Why do all of this? Why make something like a console when you're known for PC gaming? What's the real point of all of this? What is Gabe Newell cooking on his super yacht right now? Well, it's because Steam wants to, as Batman once said, rattle the cages. They want to disrupt the market and turn it into a Steam-dominated field. And frankly, when you compare what the Steam machine offers versus PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, I mean, it kind of makes a lot of sense. You see, the Steam machine will obviously do everything that Steam can already do. This means the Steam machine will 100% support things like mods in video games, which, if you're a console player, the use of mods is still very limited. Even to this day, it's practically non-existent actually, unless you play, I guess, Skyrim or Fallout 4, but even then it's like curated mods at best. And then besides mods, which is, let's be real, already a massive big plus against its competition already, Steam frequently has ridiculous sales all of the time, with games being sold for dirt cheap prices compared to their console counterparts. You'll also have cloud saving, which everyone has, I know, but they have it too, I guess, as well as backwards compatibility for the rest of time with everything that releases on Steam, which is again well over 70,000 titles out of the gate. You can play everything on Steam right now, one after another, you would be dead before you even got like 10% through all of it. Let's be real, there's so many games, dude. So you could reasonably buy a Steam machine, plug it in, and maybe spend not even $50 to $100 extra, and just buy yourself an entire starting library of all kinds of games dating back from well into the 90s if you wanted to. You could even play gems like Dragon Age Origins, which EA still hasn't remastered, and I'm never not going to be annoyed that I can't play that on PS5 right now, but that's a great example. But there's also another big selling point that I think will disrupt a lot of these ecosystems, and this is relevant to all of you, which is online gaming. Remember back in the day when you used to play games online and it was free? You didn't have to pay a subscription service for it? And remember when Xbox decided, actually, you guys all need to pay for Xbox Live right now to use our online, which means that if you wanted to play Call of Duty Black Ops, you would have to convince mom and dad to pay for it or get the money some other way, I guess. And then PlayStation, which also had free online actually with the PS3, then suddenly decided, actually, you know what? You all gotta pay us as well going forward from PS4, and now it's just pretty much normalized everywhere on console? Well, the Steam platform allows for online play without paying for any subscriptions. Yes, that even includes stuff like Call of Duty or Battlefield as well. You can just buy these games on Steam, and then you just play them without having to fork over $50 or $100. However much online is these days, I honestly don't remember now that I'm thinking about it. I just have it on auto renewal if I'm being real. Hold on. How much is PSN for a year now? I'm curious. Let me look this up. Okay, it's $110 Canadian a year. I thought it was like $80 Canadian. Well, there you go. This is what I mean. See? So this subscription nonsense doesn't really exist on Steam. Although to PlayStation's benefit, I will admit the PSN thing does include PlayStation Plus, which does give you titles every single month to add to your library, which you can then play for the rest of time, which is a great deal. Xbox does this too. But regardless, the point here is that Steam does not charge for online when the others, even Nintendo, those greedy little freaks over there, are also now charging you extra so you can pit your Pikachu against someone's Pidgey online these days. Nobody uses Pidgey online, by the way. I should use something like Garchomp or Alakazam. Pro players actually use those Pokemon. It doesn't matter. Let's just keep moving. But anyway, there's also another thing that the Steam machine will not do that other consoles can do, which is that it will actually have zero region locks at all. This is huge since even on PlayStation, if you buy a game that is region locked, you can't play it obviously unless your console is set to that same region. Why would they do this in the first place? Probably because different versions of these games exist depending on the region. For example, the Middle Eastern versions of games will remove rainbow flags, whereas in the West, those flags will be present. I'm looking at you. Spider-Man 2 is a great example of this. Another big reason why the Steam machine could disrupt the console space is that unlike PlayStation or Nintendo and Xbox, the Steam machine will allow you to upgrade its RAM, for example, in the future, which is like the raw power, if you will, of the console itself. Yeah, you heard that right. I know it's kind of nuts, but you see, a big reason why if you play on console, you feel the need to buy, let's say, a PS5 Pro over the base model is because of this very reason. Sony and even Microsoft have pushed for new, more powerful versions of their consoles by instead selling their consumers the entire console again at a premium price point. What Valve would do here is just sell sell you the part as a plug-in to your console to then upgrade it pretty much and then make it more powerful, meaning that you don't need a whole other console, and in theory, maybe it could be cheaper. But now, let's talk about the elephants in the room, because it's not all good for Valve, I gotta be real. You see, everyone has been wondering, wow, this all just sounds incredible and amazing. Like, I can play Half-Life on my Steam machine in my living room. Surely this thing will be cheaper than a PS5, right? Well, yes, but actually no. You see, it turns out Valve is trying to push a new console when there's currently, how do I put this, a trade war going on pretty much. I don't mean the tariffs and all that stuff. You see, right now, there is also another war going on in the land of computers and stuff, nerd things, the Great RAM War to be exact. You see, it's all because of artificial intelligence that's driving up demand for these RAM prices, because currently, there is just not enough chips to go around to supply how much is needed just for like literally anything right now. Like, let's just put AI aside, okay? Just driving the cost and demand. It's also just servers that need more RAM than like ever before. Think of the servers like a Steam machine, but it powers everything, okay? They need all the RAM they can physically get at this point. But you're probably thinking, well, how much are we talking about? Like what, a 5% increase in RAM prices? Maybe 20%. It can't be that bad, right? Well, as TrendForce reported here recently, the actual increase in RAM prices skyrocketed by 307%. Yeah, that's real, by the way. I wish I was lying to you guys here, but no, that's true. 307%. That is insane, man. But here's a graph showing you just some of the more recent spikes in demand, but this barely scratches the surface. The point is that these chips used for not just consoles, by the way, but PCs, servers, phones, pretty much anything you can name is having their prices increase due to this mass shortage. Elon Musk, for example, I've seen here from Tom's Hardware, has openly demanded that companies like Samsung and more, they just have to up their production rates of RAM and other products into the literal billions just to meet the demands of Tesla and SpaceX alone. That doesn't even include everyone else, just them guys. So when one of the richest guys in the world is out here demanding for more chips, this kind of puts places like Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Steam, of course, in the crossfires too. Everybody wants more RAM chips, and to add more problems to the mix, the exact chips that Steam needs for their Steam machine are currently going for somewhere around $100 to $150 each, which is not good when you're trying to sell this console hypothetically in the millions at release. This is not a Steam problem, I know, okay, it's everybody. As Eurogamer reported here recently too, even Xbox might be forced to raise their prices on their hardware because of the insane price hikes when it comes to RAM chips and so on. As Eurogamer says here, Microsoft has warned its partners that ongoing RAM shortages and soaring costs could lead to higher prices for its customers, with AI data centers snapping up memory in huge numbers and leaving little left for consumer electronics. According to Moore's Law is Dead, that's another YouTuber channel who has sources in the industry, as seen here, one of the only companies right now that should be hypothetically fine for at least the next year or so is actually Sony, because they apparently stockpiled a bunch of RAM chips and just bought them when they were a lot cheaper years ago, because I guess they probably knew this problem was coming. However, for Microsoft and I guess Steam now, they don't really have that luxury, and I doubt that Sony is really going to be willing to give their RAM stock to, say, Valve now, because if they do, it would just mean that now more Steam machines would in theory then come into existence, which could undermine or sabotage their market dominance. You see what I mean? It is a RAM war, okay? Everybody is fighting over chips right now. And ultimately, no matter where it ends up going, it's going to be you and me that will pay the price if we decide to buy any of these products. Like, let's be real. One of you probably bought a new phone today and it was more expensive than it usually is. Why? RAM. That's why, like always. This then brings the question everyone has. How much is the GameCube going to cost at release then? The PS5 is around $500 in America. It's around almost $1,000 right now for the PS5 Pro in Canada, where I live, for example. Again, why is that the case? Because everything is going up in cost. I'm not saying I'm okay with it, alright? But with the Steam machine, as Vice reports here, Valve has responded to the rumors of how they will price this machine going forward. And according to Valve, the Steam machine will not, I repeat, not be priced like a console, but more so like a PC instead. Valve flat out confirms this during their article, but one of the Valve developers was also recently on a podcast and confirmed these rumors to be true. This is where they said, "No, it's more in line with what you might expect from the current PC market. Obviously, our goal is for it to be a good deal at that level of performance. And then you have features that are actually really hard to build if you're making your own gaming PC from parts. So this now throws a wrench in the system, because it now makes the Steam machine a harder sell, especially at release, because now you have to objectively look at what it's offering versus the cost. It has been confirmed, okay, again, it will not be as powerful as a PlayStation 5 yet. It will cost more money as well. But again, the flip side is you will have access to the entire Steam library. You will also not have to pay for online ever, and you can upgrade in the future to a more powerful version of the Steam machine, which would, in theory, then be more powerful than current gen hardware through upgrades. And again, with how this RAM war is going on, which currently has no end in sight, by the way, this could only make these upgrades for the Steam machine, frankly, even more expensive, which would then just price out the majority of players already, because like I said, in Canada anyways, the PS5 Pro is already basically $1,000, like $950 right now, and that is obviously a console. If the Steam machine is priced like a PC, like what am I expected to pay here then? $1,200 Canadian? I don't know, maybe even $1,400 for something that isn't even as powerful as what I currently own. It's a weird balancing act, I know, because the good does outweigh the bad, but I still don't think that normal players are really going to see it that way, and I don't blame them. Despite the benefits, what they will see is they will have to fork over well into the $1,000 plus range just to really like set themselves up to begin with, and not everyone just has this sort of money laying around, which is totally fair, I get that. I then asked Grok, based on Steam specs for this new machine, what it believes the projected price will be for the Steam machine, while comparing how expensive each piece of its kit is versus the market performance and the competition. So Grok believes, as of right now, in this very moment when this video is being made, that the Steam machine will retail somewhere near, hypothetically of course, $900 American at release, which would price you at almost double the price of a base model PS5 in America. Of course, this is not the official price, just what Grok theorizes it will cost, again based on what's actually under the hood of the Steam machine. But like I showed you guys with how expensive RAM is getting and then some, these prices could just keep going up and up as time goes on. And in Canadian dollars, that easily makes this thing well into the $1,000+ range. I also asked Grok to theorize based on all data available currently to juxtapose the PS5 and such against the Steam machine for prices against what has existed before versus now and also the future. This is what Grok came up with. Basically, as of right now, the Steam machine is not a viable option for many, but historically, the prices of what is needed for it will drop in time, which means eventually, once the market, settles down, the Steam machine will objectively be a better buy than the PlayStation, the Xbox, or Nintendo consoles in comparison. It's all a balancing act, I get that, but what we're witnessing here is an actual competitor to the console space that could, in theory, take it over if Valve is smart about this. And considering it's Valve we're talking about, the likelihood is they will indeed be smart about it. I mean, look at this article from Tom's Hardware again. These guys keep showing up in this video like crazy, but look at this dude. Valve makes about $50 million per employee based on their profitability and size, with about $17 billion being generated in 2025 alone, which is insane, by the way. As Reese Elliott of Alinea Analytics shows here, Steam is just growing over time. They're not stopping. 2025 was their most profitable year yet, and they're just raking in billions of dollars at this point. Even The Verge reported earlier this year that the Steam Deck is just destroying its competition when it comes to handheld PC gaming as well. So if you were going to tie the Steam Deck with the GameCube, yeah, it would lead to actual market dominance. I, for example, have been using the PS Portal more often, and I can see the appeal, right? If I had a Steam Deck-like device for my PlayStation console, I would likely play that thing all the time. It would be a genuine game changer, especially during travel, like on flights, for example. Sony is apparently working on a handheld device for PlayStation 5, and I guess the PS6 maybe, but the point is that Steam is still ahead of the curve. They've already sold over 10 million Steam Decks to consumers, and if they manage to get the Steam machine up and running at an affordable price point, it's genuinely going to be curtains for everyone who isn't named Nintendo, because Sony and Xbox, they have also been releasing their exclusives routinely on PC for a long time, which actually in turn only makes the Steam machine Steam Deck Wombo combo even more tantalizing now. Because why buy a PlayStation or Xbox if all their exclusives are going to come there anyways, plus you can play them on the go but also not pay for online, and you can just upgrade the thing every now and then with easy to slot in plugins instead of buying a whole new console every time you want to upgrade. If you ask me, the Steam machine is going to change console gaming forever in theory. Sony especially is going to have to justify why anyone would pick them over Steam in the long run now. Sony needs to retain their exclusives and ensure that their ecosystem makes logical sense with their own dedicated handheld, otherwise Valve will destroy them. Xbox, I don't even consider at this point due to how weak it is, but Nintendo will be be the only other console that will likely continue to exist. Because Nintendo is doing what Sony should be doing, ensuring their games they're known for can only be played on their hardware. You can't play Zelda, Pokemon, and more on Steam. Well, legally anyways, but that's the point. As long as those games are tied to the Nintendo ecosystem, nobody can reasonably touch them in really any meaningful way. But Sony is the real loser here because they have everything to lose with this thing existing. And they really need to ensure that they can fix this before Valve just swoops in and destroys them immediately and eats all of their market share. I finally then just asked Grok to summarize everything I've explained here in this video, from the prices, the RAM shortages, the exclusivity of what Steam offers, and more, into like maybe 2 sentences to sum this all up. So let me finish this video with what Grok said. Here's what it said. In summary, Steam Machine could shatter console dominance by blending their simplicity with PC's longevity and ecosystem, but high RAM prices delay affordability, mirroring 2013. Once prices normalize, it flips the script. Boom. There you have it. Well, if I was anyone against Valve right now, I would be battening down the hatches and ensuring that I don't get cooked in the future. But what do you guys think? Is the Steam Machine really going to be the next big thing, or will it fail like they've tried before, I guess? Let me know. As always, thanks for being here, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.